This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tennis ITN Assessment Training Webinar for Levels 4 and 5. Whether this webinar is informative and will help you to complete the ITN assessment. A few reminders before we get started here today. If you have any further questions or comments, please email those to sports@sonc.net, and those will be addressed in a follow-up email from the sports department. So who is presenting this information today? My name is Nathan Brookins. I'm the sport director for the East here at SONC. And also joining me today is a member of our sport development team, Steve Hostrasser from Jacksonville, North Carolina. For those of you that are new, our sport development team members are vital in the management, development, and growth of tennis here in North Carolina. They serve as our sport experts and are great resources for us as well as you. They accomplish much more than just the coaches training schools, which is a very important part of their job. However, they are a great resource for you to utilize if you have any questions about tennis or about this ITN assessment as well. So where to find this information? We have put all the ITN assessment forms and the instructions and guides on the tennis webpage, and we will also be putting this on the tennis webpage as well. Please utilize these resources when completing the assessments for your athletes. The guides and instructions provide court diagrams that outline the setup of the court with complete instructions on correctly performing the ITN assessment. So what is the ITN assessment and why have we switched from our old rating system to this new rating system? Well, the ITN assessment has started to be used by Special Olympics for tennis in 2018. This uses the ITF, which is the International Tennis Federation, which happens to be the international governing body of Special Olympics tennis, as its primary player rating system this year. So it's a concrete and objective assessment tool that's used globally to rate players from beginners to pro players. This ITN assessment can be administered by tennis coaches or tennis pros by following the step-by-step instructions that are outlined in the instructions provided on the tennis webpage. We've switched over to this to align ourselves with the international community and the tennis player rating system that is used worldwide. So some tips and tricks before we get into the nuts and bolts of this assessment. Completing this ITN assessment may look like a lot on paper, but it doesn't really have to be. There's a few tips and tricks that we're going to give you here today that can help you complete these assessments for your athletes quicker and with more ease. The first is to create a group of athletes that will go to the assessment together. We recommend around 3 to 5 athletes. That way everybody stays engaged at the same time. The second is use your volunteers. You should always be using volunteers for your practices anyway, but definitely when you plan to do an assessment day, make sure that you have plenty of volunteers that you can utilize for your assessments. Also, have the court set up before your athletes arrive. If you have practice at 5, get there in time to set the court up. That way, when they arrive, they can get warmed up and you can go ahead and get started on the assessments. This will allow you to maximize your time and their time as well. Also, after you set up the court, one thing that we have learned is by writing the actual point total on the court itself in chalk will help when it comes to scoring. It makes it a little bit easier to see the zone that the ball was hit in. It makes it easier for the ball spotter and the scorer. Also, use the provided diagrams and the instructions. The instructions are very thorough and have everything that you need in there as a resource to complete this ITN assessment. So use those and make sure you know them and read through them carefully. And lastly, if you have access to multiple courts, utilize them. You can run multiple assessments on different courts, and especially with your volunteer help at one time. So what is needed? To help with the rating, you will need a scorekeeper per court, a feeder per court, at least one athlete escort per court, and 2 to 4 ball retrievers. Also, you'll need courts lined as the diagram show, the correct ball type for each level. So if you're using a level 4, then that will be the green dot ball, the lower compression ball. If it's a level 5 athlete, they'll be using the traditional tennis ball. You will need line markers, whether that is tape, whether that is chalk, or something to make sure you can outline the court and mark the lines. A stopwatch, and you will need ITN 10.1 score sheets located on the tennis webpage for levels 4 and 5. And then, of course, pens and a clipboard to complete the assessment. So setting up the court. The first one we're going to talk about is the ground stroke depth and volley test and setting up the courts for that. They use the same court configuration, and it typically takes around 10 minutes for it to be set up. So in order to place the lines, as you can see here on the screen, you're going to start at the service line. Place a line across the court every 6 feet from the service line into the court. After, there should be 3 separate areas plus the 2 service boxes on that one side of the court. Also, to set up the bonus point area, start at the center of the baseline and measure 16 feet towards the back fence. Make a mark there. Now go to the edge of the court and measure 15 feet back to the fence on each side. Make a mark on each of those. You'll connect all 3 marks with that tape or with that chalk that you have. And that will create your power area, which is worth double points. That also creates your bonus point area, that is in between the power area and the service line. So when you set up the court, it should look like this. It does typically take around 10 minutes if you have multiple people helping you, and you can divvy up the jobs. The next is the ground stroke accuracy test setup. 2 lines will be added to the already configuration of a tennis court. So to add the line, start at the single side line. So that is your inner line from the court. Measure 81 inches out towards the center of the court on each side. Make a mark at the net, and then make a mark at the service line as well. Connect those marks with tape to create the line on each side. And you can go every few feet and make a mark 81 inches out. That way you're keeping a nice straight line, and you can make sure that you are staying straight throughout the entire court. Now that you have your line set for the ground stroke accuracy test, go ahead and set your power area test as well. That will be the same as we outlined in the previous slide. It is 15 feet out from the side and 16 feet out from the center of the court at the service line. And that will create your power area, which is worth double points. The last court configuration that you will need is the serve test configuration. So you will be splitting the service boxes on one side of the court in half with tape, or chalk if you have that. This will create 4 necessary targets for each serve test. The bonus point area will remain the same. So once you get that bonus point area set up, you can keep that for the entirety of your assessment. We recommend doing it on both sides in case you are switching per test. So utilize your court space, and here for the serve test, you're simply going to split the service boxes in half to create 4 different service boxes. So now that you are set up of the ITN assessment, it's a great time to get started with your first assessment. But first, some overall rules of performing this assessment. Athletes will receive 4 practice shots at the start of each test. An athlete has the right to refuse a ball prior to hitting the ball. So if a feeder were to feed a bad ball where the athlete is not easily able to reach it, the feeder themselves or the athlete can refuse that ball. But once they hit it, that ball must count. And then also, if a ball lands on a line, the higher score will always be taken. So if it lands on one of the 3-point lines, that is the line in between 3 and 4, it will be counted as 4 points for that hit. So now, if you have any questions on this, as I said, please feel free to reach out to us at sports@sonc.net, and we'll be more than happy to help you with that. But also just check out the ITN assessment guide located on the tennis webpage under Coaches Resources. It has step-by-step instructions along with those diagrams so you can lay out the court. And now I'm going to turn it over to Steve to go over performing the assessment.
Thank you, Nathan. The ground stroke depth test. Personnel needed. You need 1 feeder, 1 scorer, and 1 to 2 ball spotters. The ground stroke depth test consists of 10 balls in total. 5 balls are fed to the athlete's forehand, and 5 balls are fed to the athlete's backhand. The balls should be fed alternatively as seen on the assessment sheet. There should be 1 feeder in the middle of the court on the other side of the net. This person will feed the ball to the athlete, alternating between their forehand and backhand until all 10 balls are hit. There should be 1 scorer who is recording the points based on the bounce of the ball, and there should be another ball spotter who helps the scorer locate the bounce of each ball. Scoring. Athletes will be scored points for each ball hit. The points range from 0 points for a ball that does not land within the court to 8 points for a ball that first bounces in the 4-point area and then lands in the double points power area. Coaches should use the provided diagram on the Special Olympics ITN assessment levels 4 and 5 instructions. This can be found on the tennis webpage under registration forms. Bonus points. Bonus points. There are 2 chances to earn bonus points for each ball hit. The bonus points are based on the second bounce of the ball. For example, if the first ball bounces in the 3-point area and then it bounces behind the end line, then that is the 1 extra bonus point for the total of 4 points for that ball hit. If the ball's second bounce is in the power setup area, then that is double the points of the first bounce. So for example, for this example, it will be 6 points for that ball hit. Consistency. The athlete is awarded points based on consistency for the test. 1 point is awarded for each shot that is not an error. For example, if the athlete hits all 10 balls in the playing area without any error, then that equates to 10 points. All of the points are then added together to give a final ground stroke depth total score. Volley depth test. Personnel needed: 1 feeder, 1 scorer, 1 to 2 ball spotters. The volley depth test consists of 8 balls in total. 4 balls are fed to the athlete's forehand and 4 are fed to the athlete's backhand, alternating shots. 1 feeder will stand in the middle of the court on the opposite side of the athlete. That person will feed the athlete a volleyball, ball thrown higher in the air to the athlete's forehand and backhand, alternating each time. They will feed the athlete 8 balls. The scorer and spotter will work together to locate the bounce of each ball and record the score on the score sheet based on the points area laid out in the court already. Athletes will be scored for each ball hit. The volley depth test uses the same scoring as the ground stroke depth test. Ground stroke accuracy test. Personnel needed: 1 feeder, 1 scorer, and 1 to 2 ball spotters. The ground stroke accuracy test consists of 12 ground strokes targeted with cross court or down the sideline. The first bounce score areas are different than that of the volley and the ground stroke test. However, the second bounce bonus points and the consistency points remain the same. The athlete will first hit 6 balls down the line. This means they should be stationed on the end line and should aim to hit the ball across the net and down the line in the point area. The athlete will start with a forehand down the line shot. DL means down the line, and then alternate with a backhand until 6 shots are recorded. Once those are recorded, the athlete will then complete the cross-court balls. The feeder standing in the middle of the court will feed 3 balls to the forehand and 3 to the backhand, alternating each time. The athlete will be scored based on the set point areas. Points will be awarded based on the point area diagram outlined in the ITN assessment levels 4 and 5 instructions. Athletes will be awarded points for each ball hit within play. If a ball is hit out of play or into the net, then the ball will be recorded as 0 points. The athlete should not get a retry for any ball that is an error. All scores should be recorded on the assessment sheet properly and fully. The serve test. Personnel needed: 1 feeder, 1 scorer, 1 to 2 ball spotters. For the serve test, the feeder should bring a basket of balls to the athlete's side. The athlete should stand in the inside edge of each service box to complete this test. The athlete will proceed to serve the ball according to tennis rules, alternating service boxes. The athlete will hit 6 balls to one service box, then switch sides and hit 6 to the other service box. Athletes will be scored based on the diagram in the ITN assessment levels 4 and 5 instructions. The bonus points area will remain the same as from the other tests. Athletes must serve in the correct service box in order to score points. Any ball that is not hit into the service box, out of bounds, let, or foot fault will be recorded as 0 points. 2 points are awarded when a ball lands in the correct service box area. 4 points are awarded when a ball lands in the target area of the correct service box. If the athlete does a foot fault, hits a let, net, or out of bounds on the first serve, they will be awarded a second serve. The points are decreased for the second serve and are 1 point for the ball landing in the correct service box and 2 points for the correct target area in the correct service box. Now the mobility test. The mobility test is the final test of the ITN assessment for levels 4 and 5. This assessment measures the time it takes a player to pick up 5 tennis balls and return them to a specified zone. 5 balls will be placed according to the mobility test diagram. The athlete will start in the middle of the end line. The timekeeper will say ready, set, go, and the athlete will run to each ball one at a time. They will pick up a ball and return it to the tennis racket where they started and then proceed to the next ball. Time stops when all 5 tennis balls are placed on the racket. Points are awarded based on the time it takes to complete the task. Use the mobility table to record the athlete's score on the ITN assessment sheet. Now I'll turn it back over to Nathan.
Thank you, Steve. So the last thing we want to go over is completing the ITN assessment form. We understand that this is a more thorough and in-depth assessment and tennis player rating system that we have not used in the past. So there may be some questions. Again, I reiterate, if you have questions, please send those to sports@sonc.net, and we are happy to answer those. The last thing is to complete the ITN assessment form. And to do that, to complete the ITN assessment form and to receive the athlete's ITN number, you must have completed all 5 sections of the assessment. To receive the ITN rating, you will add the strokes total, which is the total of the ground stroke depth test, the volley test, the ground stroke accuracy test, and the serve test, together, along with the total of the mobility score. This will give you the athlete's total ITN. Then you will use the table that is located at the bottom of the ITN assessment form to correspond the total score with the correct ITN number. As you can see here on the screen, a score between 269 and 293 gives an athlete an ITN 4 rating. So you will use that chart at the lower side of the ITN assessment to determine that final ITN rating. To finalize the assessment, it should be signed by the assessor and by the athlete themselves. And all information must be filled out completely, including their correct name, legal name, and any signatures with all of the assessments completed and signed off. Again, we understand that this is a new change and that this is a more thorough and in-depth assessment form, but we do believe that it is going to greatly help the athletes and is a great tool for you as coaches to use to really see the growth in your athletes from the beginning of the season to the end of the season each year. So we not only recommend it and require it for fall tournament, but we recommend it also for just simple progress and keeping up with your athlete's ability throughout the season and throughout the years that come. It is an objective tool, and it is a great tool to utilize, and it puts us on the same level with the international tennis community to give the same player rating. So if you have any questions on how to complete this assessment, again, you can reach us at sports@sonc.net, or you can reach out to Steve or Rich on the sport development team, and they're more than happy to help you as well. So we thank you for listening to this how-to instructional video, and we thank you for your dedication to the athletes of Special Olympics North Carolina. We look forward to seeing you all on the court, and we hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.